Hi guys, so in this video I'm going to be showing you how to complete this particular front-end mentor challenge. So it's the recipe page challenge and it's perfect for front-end developer newbies. So I'm going to be showing you how to complete this challenge in this video. I've already downloaded the file, the starter files. You can see that here. I've started the challenge, but I haven't actually started coding. So I downloaded the starter files and then I unzipped it and opened it on my VS Code. So that's all I've done so far. And using the Live Previewer extension, this is what it looks like. Getting the starter files from scratch from Frontend Mentor. So now we're just going to start by cleaning up some information that we don't need, like this comment. We don't need this comment. Something else we don't need is this information. So we can take out this style. It's just styling the attribution at the bottom. And maybe we'll style our own attribution the way we want to. And yeah, this is all the information that we'll be needing for the site. So the first thing I like to do after cleaning up a little bit is I might comment out this attribution. And of course, I will uncomment it as I go, but just so I can focus on the most important part, which is building out the actual site. And then after I'm done building this website, I can then uncomment the attribution and style it. So I'm going to come here and then I'm going to look at the design. So I like to look at the design. And one way I like to work is when it comes to putting in the text, which is the index.html. I like to look at the desktop design. And then when I want to style, I look at the mobile design first and then style mobile first. So I'm going to open up the desktop design just because I want to first work on the index.html. And when it's time for CSS, I'll also have to look at the mobile design. And then for assets, there are lots of assets. There are fonts, there are images, and all of that that we'll be needing for this. I also want to see the style guide. So I'm going to open preview just to be able to see the style guide. And this will give us some information that we'll need, especially when it comes to styling. So with this, we can start. Let's just dive right in. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can see the text. So immediately, what jumps to me is that there's a container, which is this white portion. So the beige or brown colored portion is like the body to me, and then this part is its own container. Now I'm going to use the main HTML element for that. So I'm going to comment out all of this text. I'm going to comment all of this text out once again because I'm going to be using it as I go. And then inside here, I'm going to have main. And now that we have main, we have where this white text will be. And inside main, we can then start putting in our content. So I can see this image here. So I'll just put a div with an image. And if we check for our assets, we can see there's an asset here, and then we can see images, and we can see the image here. So we can come here and do dot slash assets slash images slash image omelette, and we should see that. So I'm just going to put in the alt just for accessibility, which is very important. Omelette image. Okay, that works. So we have our image, our first element on the page, and then the next thing is this text, right? And this text is all on one column, so that means I can put it in the same container. I don't really need to worry about using a flex or a grid or any of that sort since it's stacking one on top each other. So I'm going to put it in a separate div, and I could have used sections, and sections will be a bit more semantically correct because we have like a top section. So I could also use a section, this part of it just depends on what you feel comfortable with. And you know what? I'm just going to use the section because there are two different sections on the page. And then we have what appears to be a H1 element. So I'm guessing that's the H1. And let me just confirm. So we have the H1 and then we have a paragraph text. Okay. So let's have the H1 and it's this text here, simple omelette recipe. And I'm going to cut it out and paste here. So as I go, the text that I've commented out will reduce. And we have the paragraph, which is this text here. I'm going to Control X and then paste. So we have this, and I'm very particular about my page being properly formatted because it just makes it easy to see what's going on and how to make changes. And then we have this that appears to be like a div with some text, and I know it's a separate div. I know it's a separate container because it has its own background color. So with that information, I'm going to make a div here, and then this div has a text which looks like a paragraph text, but it's in bold, and then a list, an unordered list. So let's do that. Let's do the paragraph text first, and this is the text. Control X. We're going to paste this here, and then we have the unordered list, and I know it's an unordered list because it has bullet points beside it. So I need 3 list items, and I can just do this li times 3, and VS Code will help me. And let's see the text there, total, and then we have, okay, so if you look here, and I'm going to zoom in a bit, you can see that this total text is in bold. So I can use a span for that. So I'm going to have a span here, and I'm just going to put in a text total and this colon. And then here I can just Control X and come here and paste it. And so this span, excuse me, this span is going to allow me to make this text bold. And I can do that for all of the rest. So another span, and I'll just cut and paste because it helps me to keep track of what text I've used and what text I've not used. And oops, I forgot to get the colon. So let's put a colon here, and then let's paste this here. So we've done all of this so far. We're making good progress. Let's cut this, come here, span, paste, and then 5 minutes. Okay, so this is what we have so far. It doesn't look like much, but we're making progress with the markup. And then outside of this div, we're back to the main elements now, and we have this. Right, we have this, which is looks like a H2 and then another unordered list. So let's work on that. And you know what? Another way we could do this is to look at H. So this simple omelette recipe, this H1 and this paragraph as like its own mini container, and this one in its own container, and then this one in its own container, and it will make spacing them out a little bit easier. So you know what? I'm going to put the H1 and the paragraph tag in its own container. And you see what I mean once we get to CSS. Okay, so now we have the next container of information, and we have what looks to be H2, and the text was ingredients. So let's cut that and paste it here. And we have another unordered list. So this unordered list, and they don't have any span inside them. So that's good news for us. Less code to write. So list, and then how many items do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, we have 5 items. So this times 5. And I'm just going to cut and paste this code. This text rather. Cutting and pasting the text. Not code. Okay. So we have all of that text, and let's create another div, right? And this one has a H2 called instructions, and so H2, and we have the text here. I'm just going to delete this so I can pull my text up. So instructions, and oh, we have an ordered list. We have an ordered list, and each ordered list should have like a span so we can make the first text bold, just like we did up here. So I'm going to have an ordered list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 items. Okay. So instead of an unordered list, a UL, we're going to be using an OL, and we're going to have 6 items. And I think this is the shortcut. I'm not sure. Okay, yeah. So this is the shortcut to get the number of items you need. And inside here, we're going to have this text. There's a lot of copying and pasting going on. Okay, so I'm back and I've copied and pasted all of this text in the instructions into our markup. And the last section we have is this nutrition section, and the text nutrition here looks like a H2 text. We have a paragraph, and then we have this text beside each other. So let's do that. So I'm going to create another div here. We're going to have a H2 that says nutrition. Let's cut and paste this. And then we're going to have a paragraph tag that has this information here. And then this, for this section, I want it to be in its own div. And you're going to see why in a second. So I want each line, so calories and its value, to be a div so that I can put it in a flex box, so I can just easily use a flex to modify it in this way, to put it one beside the other. So I'm going to have a div, and then inside this div I'm going to have one paragraph tag that says calories. Let's cut that and paste that, and then another paragraph tag that has the value of the calories, how many calories are in this meal. And this is just going to make it so easy to place the calories beside the value. And we're going to do it for the remaining 3 nutrients. Okay, so now that I'm done pasting all of that information, we're done with all of the text, and I can clear out that comment, and we can now uncomment this attribution, because we want to give credit to Frontend Mentor for providing us with such an excellent project. So we have the markup complete for our project, and it's now time to get to the fun part, which is CSS. So we'll create a CSS style.css document. I'm going to close all of this for now. And I want to open my mobile design, like I said, because I want to really see how it is on mobile. And you know what? Lucky for us, there doesn't seem to be a difference between the mobile and the desktop version. So that will make CSS a lot more easier. So let's create our style.css. And we have to make sure that you import it into the index.html file. I cannot tell you how many times I have started styling a web page only to realize that I did not import it. And just to confirm that we actually imported this, I'm going to give the body, I'm going to select the body and give it a background color, let's say pink. And yeah, so we can see that that did not come in, and we have to go and make sure that we correctly imported the style.css. I'm just going to do dot slash. um, let's see, oops, we have it outside of our, yeah, move this into this, and yeah, so we have this working now. You can see the body has a pink color to it. So there are some resets that you will find in almost every project, and this is one of them. And it just, first thing we're just going to do is say box sizing border box, and I really encourage you to do more research if you're not familiar with this. Another common reset is on the body element, and we're going to set the padding to 0. And sometimes you also have to set the margin to 0, but for now I'm just going to set the padding. Another common reset is with images, and you want to make the width 100% of its container, and that is going to do us so much good. And you can see that the image is already resized, and so we're just saying image should never exceed its container, and in this case its container is a div. Let me scoot my style.css over to this point so I can, so it's beside the index.html and easier to navigate. So this section right here rather, is the section that has our image, and we're making sure that it doesn't exceed 100% of that. And this reset has helped us a little bit. So another thing I like to do is I'm going to make this, I'm going to create a comment here, and it's just going to help me organize my file a lot better. So having this comment me to know where my styles start and where they end, and I'm just going to call this resets. And another thing you'll find common is before the reset, it is setting some variables, custom properties. They're called custom properties or variables. And you do this on the root. And now we're going to need our style guide. So we can see that these are the widths. So this is what we're going to be keeping in mind for our breakpoint, although thankfully our style is the same on all devices. So but for the custom properties, I want to set this colors so that they are available to me and I can easily use them. And if I have to change anything, then it will be, I can change it in in one place, and it will reflect throughout my sites. So I think this is the color primary. I'm not sure, but I'm going to give it color primary, and then I'm going to set it to this. And yeah, I don't need the, I always get confused with this at times. So if you see me make a mistake, don't don't laugh out so loud. And this, I'm also going to copy this out, and I'm not even sure. Let's look at the design. And okay, I think this might be like the darker one, so I'll just call it color secondary. Color secondary. I'm going to paste it. So now if we have to change something, it's going to reflect throughout our site, even though we've used it in multiple places. And then we have this neutral color, so I'm going to do the same thing with all of these colors, and then I'll be back. So I'm done with all of the colors, and I just use neutral 100, 200, 300, all the way down to 600. And so the next thing we want to do is to set the body to have a font size of 16 pixels. And I'm just going to do that here. Although if my memory serves me correct, that is the default and there shouldn't be any change. But you know, you can put it and you can choose to omit it since that is the default. And I used REM instead of pixels just because I'm old school. And so we also want to have the font. So the font is young serif and the weight is 400, and I'm guessing this is for the body. And then we have this for the headers. So let's do that. If you remember, we have assets which came with the front-end mentor file, and we have fonts, and then we have the two fonts we need. So we're going to be using the at font face, and this already makes it very easy. So the first one we have is, I think, young serif. So I'm just going to do young serif, and I really can't remember if I have to put this in quotation marks. So I think I'm just going to try the quotation marks. And the URL is in quotation marks, we have dot slash assets slash fonts slash young serif slash, and this is it here. Let's just test it out and then we'll find out. So I'm going to create a custom property called font family primary, and I'm going to pass in, and you know what, thinking about it now, I think this should be like this. And let's see, I'm really not sure, and sometimes you need Google's help to remember how to use things. So I'm just going to do font family primary, and yeah, so that worked. And we can see that the font has changed indeed. And the second font we're supposed to be importing is, I'm not sure if I can do this here. And I'm so sorry I keep saying a lot of I'm not sure, but the setup for a project can be so different that you'll sometimes forget how you did something the last time. That happens to everybody, but I really apologize if it is annoying at this point. So the second one is outfits. It's called outfits, and it's not from here. So that's just the assets slash font slash outfit slash this. Okay, and let's do secondary. So font family secondary, and let's do outfit. And you know what? I'm just going to come here and just set each one, and font family is out. Yeah, we have it font family secondary. And let's see, and it actually changed. But now I think the font family primary is gone. So that means I need to have another one. And you see what I mean here. You can see that the body font has changed, so that means I need to put this in its own font face. That's no problem. Okay, great. So now we have the font being applied to the H1 and the body at the same time. Great. So let's check our style guide again to see if there's anything we're missing, and it should have a weight of 400. So I'm going to set some custom properties. I'm going to say font weight 400, 600, 800, 700. So let's have regular font weight regular. So I'm just going to FW for font weight regular, and I'm going to set that to 400. Font weight bold, I'm going to set that to 600, and font weight extra bold. And I can't think of a way to export. Maybe this works, and I'm going to do 700. And just to confirm that we have the correct font weight on our body element, I'm going to come here and say font weight is font weight regular. Okay, and here I'm guessing it should be font weight X bold, maybe. All right, so now that we have some of our setup done, we can then start looking at the design and making changes. So starting from the top, we can see that this the this beige or brown background is not here on the mobile, which is one of the reasons why I like to start styling with mobile first. And I'm going to zoom in a bit, just zoom in a bit, zoom in a bit. There's also something else I want to do, and these are called utility classes. If you're not familiar with them, I really encourage you to get familiar with them because they make your life when it comes to styling CSS way easier. So I'm just going to do, this is utility classes, and one utility class I want is a container class. And this container class is going to have a width, and I'm going to set it to main. So whatever is smaller, it could be 90%, but I never want it to exceed, how about we do 50 rem. And it might not make sense now, so I'm going to add a background color just so that what I did is obvious. And I'm going to come here on the main and add that class of container. And you can see already that we have something going on here. And just to make this, I'm going to margin inline. So this is going to place everything in the center, margin inline auto. And so now what we have is this. We have something controlling the content to ensure that on smaller screen sizes it's smaller, but then it never exceeds a particular width. And you know what, this is the point where I usually have my DevTools open so I can take advantage of the responsiveness here. And looking at it now, I think there's just too much space. On the mobile, it's actually 100%. There shouldn't be any gap. So I'm going to say 100%, but never exceed 50 rem. And so if I change this to, let's say, a laptop screen, that's okay. So we have this, and you can see that it's actually staying at 50 rem. And let me just do this, and it gets to 50 rem and it stops growing. But on smaller screen sizes, it's 100%. Okay. So we have that already going for us. And I'm going to take out this pink background color, of course, because it's hideous. We have the container already. And there's some padding. We can see that there's some padding on the left and the right. So we're going to add that padding here. And I'm going to add it here because I know that I'm going to be using this container utility class on just the main element. But if you have a bigger project, then you might not want to do this. And I don't want padding, but just padding inline. So padding inline is going to allow me to add padding to the left and right and not the top and bottom. And so I've just chosen 20 pixels, and we can work with that for now and adjust as we go. And you know what, just looking at this right now, I can see that I don't want any padding for the image, just for the text. So we're going to have to come back to our markup and start adding classes. So if you're wondering why I did not add classes, it's because I don't like to add classes while I'm building my markup. But I'm going to add a class here, and I'm going to call it text container because it has just the text. And so I'm going to move this padding inline of 20 pixels to text container because we don't want any padding around our image. I'm going to also copy this and just say main. And we have text container. I'm going to do a padding inline of 20 pixels. Great. So we have that little padding, and looking at the design, I think we might need a little bit more padding, but let's just work with what we have right now. And moving on to the image, we can see that even on mobile, the image here is a lot bigger. So let's go back to our H1 and let's set a font size of 2 rem. And I think 2 rem is actually a little bit bigger. We could do 2.25 rem. Oh, that's too big. Let's revert back to 2 rem. Okay, this looks very similar to what we had. I can also see that in this section, this text container, there's a padding, right? And I'm going to check the bottom, and there's also a padding. So you know what, instead of padding block, we want a padding top, bottom, left, and right. So let's change this to a full padding. Yeah, that looks closer to the design. And it has this color that is not quite black. I really can't put my hands on it. And even the font seems very different from the font on the design. So let's inspect that to see what's going on. Okay, so let's inspect that, and I'm going to check, and we have family, which is fit. So we are actually using the expected font family. even though it looks different. So let's go back to the style guide and see we mixed up which font family should be for which. You have young serif and outfit. So you know what? Let me just try this and change the font family here to font family primary. I think we've mixed it up. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to revert this back to font family secondary, but I'm going to come here and come up here and then change this. So this should be young serif, and this at the bottom should be outfits, right? Yes, great. So we have a font that looks similar to the design. Great. And now it's time for another utility class that I really, really love. And I call it flow content. And I actually learned this from, I'm going to put his name on the screen. I remember his name. I just cannot, it's not coming to mind right now. But I learned this from him. And it's a combination of utility classes and using the lobotomized out. So basically, I'm saying every element that has the class of flow should select its children, every child except the first child, and add a margin top of, and I'll just start with one area right now. Well, you know what, just for testing purpose, I'm going to make this a ridiculous number like 5 rem, so it's really obvious what's going on. Let's put this down a little bit. So now let's look at places where we can add this flow. We can certainly add it here. So let's add a class of flow to space the H1 and the paragraph tag. And we can already see that in action. So I'm going to move this back to 1 rem. Right. And we have some space between that. We can also see that we could have flow in the next section, but before the next section, I actually want flow between elements. And I'm going to create another one where I'm going to call it flow large. And you don't have to do it this way. There are multiple ways to modify elements and make it more dynamic, but just because this is a simple project, I can get away with this. And we have flow large, and I can make it something ridiculous like 5 rem, so it's very obvious to see the difference. And you can see that the difference between the H1 and the paragraph here is smaller than the difference between this section here and this next section, which is what we want. So, but 5 rem is too much in my opinion. I'm going to bring that down to 3 rem, and we can always reduce it as we go. Looking at this now, I think it's closer to 2 rem, so let's just make it 2 rem. Great. So we have a way now that we can just easily space out our elements. And another thing I noticed is that the body, so all the paragraphs have this color that is not black. So I'm going to come to the body and set a color on it. And I'm going to use the color, not the neutral colors. Let's try the primary color and see. That actually changed the H1, which is not what I want. But let's confirm we're using a similar color, and this is where of course a Figma file will come in handy. You know what, let's just take this out and say all colors apart from the H1. I'm trying to think. Okay, let's just say every paragraph other than the H1, and I don't think I want it to be the color primary. Is it the color primary? I'm trying to see. I guess it doesn't look bad. It looks closer to what we have. But let's just continue, and maybe let's keep working on the project, and maybe as we continue to work on the project, we'll see the better color. And let's move to the next section. So this part, preparation time. And I'm going to create another utility class because I can see that there, okay, apart from this, there doesn't seem to be any other text that has this particular color and font width. So instead of creating a utility class, I'll just do that inside here. I'll create a class for it since I'm using it just once. But before then, within it, I want to add the flow. So we're already in the second section. and I've added a flow. I also want to add a class called preparation, and I'm going to come under here and say preparation, and I hope I preparation. I hope I spelled that correctly. Okay, and we have this background color on it. So let's see what background color matches it. I think it's the color secondary, although you might have to reduce the opacity. So let's do color secondary, and yeah, just as I expected, maybe it's one of the neutral colors. Who knows? No, doesn't seem to be one of the neutral colors. What if we made this 12 will make it, so let's make it like 82, and I'm just trying to match this right now because there is a background color, but I don't think I should mess with that. I don't think I should mess with that. Let's take this color secondary, just copy it. Since we're using it in just one place, I'm going to paste this here and then just tweak this a little bit, and I think we have something closer to the color. Once again, this is where a Figma file will have come in really handy. How about 95? I think we're getting closer. How about 98? And this is almost white at this point. Yeah, maybe we leave it at 98 or 97. Okay, let's leave it at 97. So we have this right now, and then I'm going to just do preparation and select the first child, which is or I could just do um, the paragraph. I'm sorry, I'm doing a lot of So there's just one paragraph here, so I might as well just select the paragraph inside preparation, and I'm going to, let's confirm, we need to set a different font weight and a different font size. So let's start with the color, and I think it's secondary. And that was why I did not want to mess with that. And we can't see it in action yet, but I'll increase the font weight. The font weight extra bold. Okay, I think we're making some progress. And then I'll increase the font size to maybe 1.25 rem, since we have 1.5 on the body, so we can make this 1.25. And another thing we can see is that there's a padding inside of preparation. So I'm going to add a padding all round of maybe 20 pixels. That worked a bit, although I think I want the left and the right padding to be a little bit more. So how about we do 20 pixels top bottom and 40 pixels left right. Okay, and then I'm going to add a border radius, and I'm just going to guess my values here. 10 pixels. It looks like something around 10 pixels. Yeah, okay, so that worked well enough. It looks like something along this line. And the next thing I'm going to do is to flow the content inside this space. Like I said, there's so many ways to do this. I could have passed this as a variable, and instead of margin top, I could say, you know what, flow space, or fall back to 1 rem, and this also works. So that means I can come to this point. So instead of creating flow large, flow medium, and all of that, I can come here and select the UL that is inside preparation and say, you know what, I want this particular flow space to be 0.5 rem. And now I remember the YouTuber's name. His name is Kevin Powell, if I'm correct. And I can just do this. I can also make it like a ridiculously large value, just so it's obvious that it's actually working. And this is not doing what I expect it to do. So we're going to have to figure out why. I actually want the flow to be within. Oh, and that's because I haven't even added a class of flow here, and that's why. So I'm going to do 0.5 area, and yeah, so we have it spaced out a little bit better. And then I'm going to select the spans that are inside it, and they all have a bold text. And you know what? Every span seems to have a bold text. So I'm just going to go up and do that up here somewhere. I'm just going to do that here. It's going to say every span has a font weight or font weight extra bold. That seems to be a little bit too much. How about we just do bold? Okay. I guess we can just keep it at bold. So this is what they have, and this is what we have so far. It's not pixel perfect, but it's close. It's close enough. And I'm just looking at the padding between these two, and I'm realizing, you know what, it looks a little bit funny, but theirs looks a little bit funny too, because on the left you have very little padding, and then on the right there's so much padding because the text is basically wrapping. And I think it has to do with, so ULs tend to come with their own padding, and let's just see what our UL looks like right now. I'm going to do maybe pale green. Okay, and oddly enough, there doesn't seem to be any padding here, but let's just confirm because there are some defaults that come with styles, and oddly enough, that's not the reason why this looks, I don't know, it doesn't look very balanced to me, but we'll keep moving forward and pressing on. So this is, like I said, not pixel perfect, but it's as close to it as I can come right now. And then, of course, as we keep making progress, we'll keep altering and improving on our styles. So now that we have that section done, let's go move on to the ingredient section. And I can see that the H2s have a particular style, a particular color. So I'm going to select every H2. I'm going to just use this. And then I'm going to do color, and I'm going to set it to the color primary. I think it's a shade of brown. Yeah, great. So we have that. And maybe I'll try and increase the font size a bit. If that is too Arial, maybe we can get away with 1.5 for the H2. That didn't seem to make any difference, but okay, so another thing we need to do is to add our flow class here. Flow, and I need to spell that correctly. Flow. Great. And then of course in the UL again we want the class of flow. Great. And you can see where this utility classes come in hand because I do not need to rewrite my style again. One thing I am noticing is it seems like this is pressed to the edge. And oh, I think it's because of the list items, the ULs. Okay, let's keep moving forward. It's the style markers. Okay. So at this point, let's see what the style is supposed to be. Despite the fact that there's a padding on the left and the right, this list is too much to the left. So it's hitting the left and it's like almost like the padding is not being applied. So to fix that, I'm going to come to my, I think, reset. It makes sense to do this in the reset and just add a padding left of 20 pixels. And I'm using 20 pixels because the padding here is 20 pixels and I just want to move it a little bit so that the list marker, the dot, is 20 pixels away. And this is just my own solution. I'm interested in finding out how other people deal with this, but this is how I fix it. And I'm going to do that for the ordered list too, because you can see we have another list under that also has the same issue. So I'm going to do that for the ordered list, and we can see everything is perfectly aligned. Okay, so let's focus on the ingredient section and continue. So it's more or less done, and looking at this more, I can see that I probably did not choose the best color, and I'm going to change this to and it's primary, so maybe let's try secondary to see if that is the correct color. It's really hard to just get the color used, especially when the style guide doesn't give much information in that regard. There's no information really here, and I just have to look at the image to try and guess. But yeah, so let's move. So here there's a what looks like a border at the bottom of this ingredient section. So I'm going to just give this a class of ingredients so I can add that border. I could also have used a utility class like we've been doing, but like I said, it's a really small project, so this works well. Ingredients, if I can spell ingredients, and border bottom, and let's do 2 pixels solid, and maybe let's use the secondary because that is a darker color, the color secondary. And not bad, but we should make it a little bit lighter. So how about 1 pixel, and maybe primary, maybe not this primary. Okay, I think we still are not getting the color right because this color looks really faint. So it's probably one of the neutral colors, and I'll try neutral excuse me, I'll try neutral 400. So it's probably not either the primary or secondary color, but color neutral, and let's do 400. Okay, this looks more like it. This looks more like it. And now we can see that we want a padding at the bottom of this. So I'll do padding bottom, and maybe I'll do 1 rem, and that might be too much, but let's just see. Okay, it's actually not too much. Let's go back here, and this looks like double of it, so how about 2 rems? Yeah, and this looks quite similar to the design we have. So let's continue. We already have the H2 hairstyle, but we need the flow, the space between the elements. So we're going to come back. We're done with the ingredient section, and we can close that and just work on in the instruction section. So we're going to have a class here of flow, and inside the ordered list, this is the ordered list 1 2 3 4, we're going to also have a class of flow. And I just want to look at the spacing, and the spacing looks quite similar. It looks quite similar, and we already have our spans already styled. So they are all our spans. The beat the egg, heat the pan, cook the omelets are all bold already. So this was quite similar, and this gives us an interesting point to look at, because when I was making this border bottom, excuse me, when I was making this border bottom, I had no idea that it was repeated here, right? And it looks like it's being used here again. So my thought would be to make this a utility style so I can reuse it. So instead of calling this ingredient, I'm just going to do maybe bottom line. And instead of setting the padding bottom to be 2 rem, I'm just going to do bottom padding, similar to what we did with the flow space. And if there's no bottom padding set, then just use 2 rem. Thank you so much, Kevin Powell, for teaching me this trick. And I'm going to put it here in the utility class. And of course, we will no longer have it here. It was supposed to be at the ingredient section, and we no longer have it here. So here I'm just going to say, instead of ingredient, because I'm not styling this class anymore, I'm just going to do, I think border bottom is what I call the class. And let's confirm. Okay, so it did not show up, and that means I put the bottom line. So The class is bottom line. Bottom line, great. So we have that class here, and now I can also add it here to the instructions. So I can also add bottom line here, and we should see that appear great. So using utility classes, I don't have to rewrite styles as much as I would without a utility class. And I think now we're at the final section, the nutrition section. So let's style this. We want the flow class to be here too. So I'm going to close instructions and we're here. So I'll put a class of flow, and so now we're at the point of the flex items. So these items that look like they're in a table. And the first thing I want to do is to add the bottom line class, right? I'm going to add bottom line. And I'm also going to add a class of flex, and this will also be a utility class. Even though I'm not using it in multiple places, I could just make it a utility class. I love utility classes, if you can't tell already. So I'm going to make this a flex and the same class here, bottom line and flex. Great. So we have those two, and because like I said, I'm not reusing that flex, it's kind of like it's a utility class, but I'm not going to use it anywhere else. So I can add some styles that were made specifically for that section. And one thing I want to do is to reduce this padding at the bottom line. So let's see how it is. It feels too much right now. And that was why when I was making the bottom line utility class, I added this bottom padding variable. So I can come here and reduce it, bottom padding, and set it to maybe 1 rem. So the hope is that would, yeah, and it has made the line a little bit tighter. So now for the main part, I have to display flex. Okay, and I'm going to justify content space between. Going to do space between, and we have it perfect in just 2 lines of code. And looking at it now, I can see that theirs doesn't have space between, but I think I prefer the space between. Theirs seems to be like justifies content center, so we could try center, but I think I prefer space between. And if I was working with an it looks like this, and then they probably like have a gap of like 3 rem or something, but I really prefer space between. So I'm going to just I really prefer this looks way better to me, and have the space in the middle. And the last thing I want to do is to, of course, make all of these values bold. And that brings us to another conundrum where we already have some text that is bold and we could have easily reused it, but now it's in a span. And one option would be to not necessarily make these values a span so that they can inherit this, so they can make use of this style, but maybe make this a utility class. I don't know. There's so many options. I think I'm going to go with making this bold text. And that is going to distort our style a little bit, but let's come here and do bold text, and we'll just copy and paste this class wherever we want the text to be bold. So I'm going to come here and do this here, 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 and up this way. I'm going to select every span, every opening span. Okay, I'm just going to do span, and I'm going to paste this, and hopefully that works. So we have it back here. Great. So this, we're more or less done already with this. The final thing I want to do is to style this attribution, and I want to see what the, maybe place it in a footer just for better semantics. So instead of div here, We could just have footer and have it has a class of semantics. So let me just copy and paste it in the spirit of keeping our style sheet clean. I'll just do this even though we don't have much to style here, and I'll select attribution, and I want a padding block of maybe 2 rem top bottom, just to add some more space. And looking at this now, I realize that there's no padding on the left and right. So you know what? Just to make it align with the rest, I'll do 2 rem top bottom and then 20 pixels, because you know we have 20 pixels padding. And what else do I want here? I could leave it like this. I could, because off the top of my head I cannot come up with any design. Okay, I could use this neutral colors we have here, and we have a neutral 600. So I could do color neutral 100 for the text color, and then the background color will be color neutral 600, and just give it like this dark, yeah, this dark, and maybe just text align center, and the links are looking funny, so maybe color and then color neutral 100, which is white. Yeah, and we could just leave it at that. We could leave it at that, and maybe just reduce the font size 8 bits, font size 2.75 rem, since it's the footer and I don't want it to take all the attention off the main site. So we have this right now, and I'm just thinking out loud and trying to come up with a plan for the other styling, but I think this looks good on mobile. I'm just going to shrink this, and of course this is like, so we have this on mobile, and yeah, it looks good. I'm sure the desktop needs a little bit tweaking, so let's see. So this is what the desktop version looks like. I'm just going to open it up, and it doesn't look that bad, to be honest. It doesn't look horrible. We could, however, add the desktop styles that were okay. So on desktop, we want, and oh, I can now see that we actually want this image to have a border radius. And I totally missed that. Since we have just one image here, I'm just going to add the border radius at this point, and just 10 pixels. And what else are we missing out on? Um, let's see. So we want actually a padding block to be applied. We want a padding block on the desktop, and I can't really see it here, but I'm guessing it's only on the desktop. So let's do that. And we can use media queries and just look at the breakpoint. They have a 1440 pixel. So we can just add a media query. Oops. At the end of all of this, mean width of 1440 pixels. And we can just select main or container, and we'll just add a padding block of maybe 1 rem. Let's increase, and maybe we need more. We need more. We definitely need more padding. There's double that amount of padding. Okay, and it's going to be hard to see that here because we're on a smaller screen. Personally, I would have wanted to make this style apply not just on desktop but also on tablet. So this is just me tweaking the design a little bit. I'll do something like 760, and it also make it easier for me to see the changes I'm making here. And then I don't remember setting a background color to the body. So we want the background color here to be the color neutral 100. And oh, I'm totally confusing myself because at no point do we want it to be the color neutral 100. It's a shade of brown. I think the color neutral 300. And I'm just going to set it here and see what it does for me. Okay, and I think I know the reason why it's not giving me exactly what I want is because I did not set any background color here for the container, which is our main. So I'm going to do color neutral 100. Great. And we're getting somewhere. We're not exactly where we want to be, but we're getting somewhere. And another issue I can see here is that we have no margin on the top and the bottom, right? And I don't want that margin on the smaller screens because I can see that on the smaller screens there is no margin on the top and bottom. So I'm just going to put it when we get to the tab, maybe to rem2 on the top and bottom. And we're making good progress. And then the last thing I want is the border radius because those edges look funny. So let's do this, and we're making some progress. It's definitely looking better. But there's just something weird about this image. And oh yeah, so the larger screen size, we want the image to also have the padding. We want the image to also have the padding on the larger screen size. So I'm going to come up here and we have image. So yeah, maybe I'll just do it here. Just the image and then padding inline. I think we had 20 pixels for everything else. And I also add the border radius, 10 pixels. And we cannot get that right now because I'm guessing the padding is on the image and not on its container. And yes, so let's give its container a class of image container, and that is what I want. It's the container that should have the padding inline. So image container. Great. And we are retaining our border radius, so we don't need to put this border radius here. And I feel like this padding should increase. So I'll make the image and then the text container. I'll also increase the padding inline to be 40 pixels, left, right. Yes, just a little bit more padding. So let's see what we have. And yeah, it looks similar. I think the colors are not perfectly matched, but and also the border radius could be improved upon, but yeah, it looks really similar to the image we're given. And oops, I can see now that this margin on top is too little and the margin at the bottom is too little, so we can quickly make changes to that. Let's maybe increase this to 4 REMs. I don't know how that will look. Okay, it doesn't look bad. And like I said, this is where a Figma file would have really come in handy. Really come in handy. We need a little bit more room, so maybe 7. Yeah, maybe 7. 7 looks good to me. 7 looks good to me. But I think this looks like a good first draft. Obviously, there might be some changes that need to be made, but it looks like a really good first draft. And the fact that we completed it in record time. So let me know what you think. Let me know how you could have solved this better, how you could have made this faster or more scalable in terms of the CSS. I'd really love to hear your opinion on this project. If you try it out, please let me know. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.